How's it going, guys? I'm Mike Dwyer from the Bunker Recordings and BetterMixes.com, and today I want to show you how I mix gang vocals. Gang vocals can be a little bit tricky, not necessarily because they're any more difficult to mix than any other part of the mix, but just because if you get it wrong, they can sound really, really wimpy when they're supposed to sound the exact opposite of that, and ultimately they need to be treated in a very different way than regular vocals. So let's see what the band sent me here. I have 3 stereo channels here of vocals. They came in as 6 mono tracks, but I just put them onto stereo tracks to save a little bit of room. So let's just hear them.
Somehow, someday, one of these days.
So in this case, we have 4 different takes of one singer and 2 of another singer. And having that other singer in there really does help, just give it a little bit of tonal variance. I mean, the classic thing with gang vocals is you have like the whole band go out in the room and record around one mic or whatever. But they did them all separately, and that's totally fine. Like I said, it's just helpful having more than one different person in it. And if you are recording gang vocals with just a bunch of people around one mic, be sure to get at least 2 passes of it so you can pan them left and right. Getting mono gang vocals to stand out is pretty tough. But anyway, I have all these hard pan left and right. And then the only processing I'm doing on each of the individual tracks is de-essing. Because if we listen to that again.
Somehow, someday, one of these days.
It's pretty essy. So we just have FabFilter Pro DS. Let's just turn them on. You can see we are going hard with this. We've got the range cranked all the way, and let's see how much actual reduction we're doing.
Somehow, someday, one of these days.
Okay, so it looks like we're doing like 15 decibels of reduction. And like I said, these were just really essy vocals. Because we have 6 voices here, all those S's from each voice add up and it becomes a lot. So you can really cut out a ton of it without it sounding weird. Also worth noting, I have these de-essers as multi-mono, which means it's just applying one de-esser to the left channel and one to the right. And since it's a different take on the left and the right, it's just as if each individual vocal has their own de-esser on it. So from there, these tracks are all being sent to our gang bus here. And the first thing we have is an 1176 compressor. This is also a multi-mono plugin. So it's compressing the 3 left vocals independently from the 3 right vocals. This will help to make them just a little bit wider than if we used a regular stereo compressor. So you can see we have a very fast attack and a medium slow release. Well, medium slow for an 1176. This is still pretty fast. And then we have 4:1 ratio, and let's see what we're doing.
Somehow, someday, one of these days.
Oh yeah, we are crushing those. So it looked like we were getting, 10 or 15 decibels of compression. So just absolutely nailing those in place. Next up, I have another de-esser. Just clamping down on those S's even more now that the compression brought it out a little bit. Because like I said, you really don't need a lot of S in gang vocals. So let's see how much that's doing.
Somehow, someday, one of these days. Somehow, someday.
So yeah, we're taking out another like 8 or 10 decibels out of those S's. And we're taking out enough that it's starting to sound a little bit weird. But once we get the rest of this processing going and hear it in context, it'll work. So next up is maybe one of the most important parts of our processing, and it is reverb. But the type of reverb we're using is really kind of specific. So here I'm using McDSP's Revolver, and the specific setting I'm using is from an Eventide DSP 4500, which was an old hardware unit, and the preset is called Drew's Closet. But you can get something similar with pretty much any reverb. Let me solo the wet signal so we can hear just what it's adding.
Somehow, someday, one of these days.
So you can hear it's really small, really kind of weird sounding. But now let's hear it mixed in with the dry. And I've got the wet just a little bit lower than the dry signal.
Somehow, someday, one of these days.
And without it.
Somehow, someday, one of these days.
And one more with it.
Somehow, someday, one of these days.
So it doesn't sound like a big reverb on it or whatever, but it's just putting the vocals into a space. And you might not need this if your gang vocals were recorded in a big live sounding room with like 10 people 10 feet away from the mic or whatever. But even then, this might still help to kind of thicken it up a little bit. But in this case, since it sounds like our singers were right on the mic, this really, really helps. Just add some thickness, pushes them back a little bit, makes it sound a little bit bigger, almost makes it sound like there's a couple more voices in there or whatever. And real quick, let me grab a more traditional reverb and we'll take a look at how to get a similar setting with that. So I'm going to use Valhalla Room. Let's start by putting it on the medium room setting. Just checking to see if they had a small room, but this will do. Right off the bat, let's bring our reverb time down to something really low, maybe 0.7 seconds. Let's hear that.
Somehow, someday, one of these days.
All right, so that's not bad. Let's try bringing this depth down. This slider is the balance between the early reflections and the late reflections. A lot of plugins will have it listed like that. They'll have a separate slider for early and late reflections. So we're going to slide it more towards the early side.
Somehow, someday, one of these days. Somehow, someday, one of these days.
All right, something like that sounding pretty good. Maybe we'll make this just a little bit darker.
Somehow, someday, one of these days. Somehow.
And now let's mix it in.
Somehow, someday, one of these days. Somehow, someday, one of these days.
That's working. I think we could probably even go a little bit shorter, maybe half a second.
Somehow, someday, one of these days. Somehow, someday, one of these days.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll go back to my setting in Revolver here, but I just wanted to show you that you didn't need this plugin, that you can do it with whatever. So then from there, we have a little EQ going on. So we're rolling everything off below 230 hertz and everything above 13K. And then we have a little boost at 1.8K. So let's just check that out real quick. Here's without it, and then we'll pop it in.
Somehow, someday, one of these days. Somehow, someday, one of these days.
It's not a huge difference. Let's hear what we're actually cutting out. So just the very bottom end, stuff that doesn't really need to be there. And then let's hear this. So by cutting out like the very, very top end, again, it's just making it sound like you're a little bit farther away. And that's more or less what this mid boost is doing here too.
Somehow, someday, one of these days. Somehow, someday, one of these days.
It's just sounding a little bit more distant with it on. Next, we have another compressor. Here we're using the McDSP Ultimate compressor. And this particular setting is based on a DBX compressor. But which compressor you use here doesn't really matter. Let's check out what we're doing with it.
Somehow, someday, one of these days.
So we're just doing a little bit, like 3 or 4 decibels of compression. We've got a 3-to-1 ratio and a fast attack and fast release. And what we're trying to do with this is just kind of push the vocals back into that reverb that we put on. Again, it makes it feel like the vocals are really in that room. So let's take a listen one more time. I'll pop it in and out.
Somehow, someday, one of these days. Somehow, someday, one of these days.
So yeah, like I said, with it, it just feels more cohesive, like the reverb is part of the sound. And finally, we have one more reverb. Here we're just using the Waves R-verb, and we have the reverb type set to Hall, and our decay time is about 2.5 seconds. And you can see we have this reverb EQ going, cutting out the top end and the bottom end to really focus it on that mid-range. And we just have a little bit mixed in here. We're at 12%. So let's hear that.
Somehow, someday, one of these days.
So while the previous reverb was about putting the vocals into a room, this one is more like a normal vocal reverb in that we're just kind of adding some ambience to the sound. Now, just as a reminder, let's turn all of our plugins off to see where we started.
Somehow, someday, one of these days.
And we ended up here.
Somehow, someday, one of these days.
And now let's hear them in context.
And I know you're gonna see. That you're worthy.
Yeah, so that's a whole lot better. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. And head on over to bettermixes.com to grab a free copy of my Ultimate EQ cheat sheet.